Ma'am?
we introduce ourselves?
Attention after school.
Okay,
It's
start
cold
from
out there, isn't it?
Sarah.
Who's Sarah?
Sarah?
Sarah. Beautiful song by, what is it? Jefferson Starship?
Sarah.
Yeah, beautiful song.
Sarah.
Oh, it's a beautiful song.
No
Sarah?
time
You're from this
is
area?
a good time for goodbye.
Oh, come on. You're from where?
From Aurora.
Aurora. I was up to see Frank Stronic the other day. I spent an hour with him. He's a good man. He has a drop-in center at in the Jane Finch area. After school drop-in center. I have about 60 kids in there now. And Frank was very kind to write me a check. He's got a lot of good qualities, Frank.
Nice.
So you're Sarah. You're Tommy.
No.
It says Tommy. I never. It's okay. Ma'am.
Darlene?
Of course it is, Darlene. That's my first cousin's name, Darlene. Where are you from, Darlene?
I'm from Aurora.
And you're from up this area too? I guess everybody's from this area.
Actually,
Yeah.
I grew up in Scarborough and moved up to Aurora.
I won't hold that against you.
Okay.
Scarborough. Which part of Scarborough?
The Bluff area.
Damn, Sarah, your head's in the way.
That's a good area.
Yeah.
Yeah. My man, you're,
I'm Andre.
where are you from?
I live in Aurora, but Richmond Hill, Scarborough.
You're a Scarborough guy, okay?
Paul.
Paul, how you doing? You're from which area, Paul?
This area too.
Adrian.
Yes, sir.
Nice to meet you, Adrian. Your name, sir?
Rick.
Rick, and you're from this area too?
No, a little north.
Wow. Gets colder the further you go too. Freeze the boogies in your nose sometimes. Edmonton, I was like, my hairs were frozen. Your name?
Mine is Krista.
Krista?
Krista. That's a nice name. Your name?
Shelley.
That's my daughter's name, Shelley. She lives in Florida, damn her. Yeah, she's in Florida, Orlando. She was talking to me the other day, she said, Dad, I'm out in my shorts. I said, shut up. Your name?
Derek. Or D-Rock.
I feel for you, my man. You're a Maple Leaf fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
The last time Maple Leafs won a Stanley Cup, Hound Dog was a hit. One last night, though. Your name is Josh.
Yes, sir.
There you go. My name is, my real name isn't Spider, of course. I get that question wherever I go. How'd you get the name Spider? And it happened back in 1963.
Wow.
I was living a long time ago. I'm an old guy. I was living in Detroit and training with a guy from Toronto by the name of George Chabella.
I know him.
And George was in Detroit working out of the Motor City gym. And he was the only white guy in the gym. I mean, this is Black Bottom, Detroit. This is Murder City, USA.
Yeah.
And I'm walking the gym when he goes, boom, boom, he's hitting the bags. I seen this guy's got a head like this, neck. You know, big dude. And we became fast friends. He dug the same things as I did. And he was living in Detroit because he couldn't find anybody in Toronto in his apartment. So his manager, Irv Ungerman, brought him to Detroit. And that's how we met. And George and I hit it right off. And he had a little apartment up at Woodburn Canfield. I mean, it was cockroaches in there. I mean, you know, size of your head. But George and I became good friends, and we used to hunt and run together. I was younger than him. Back then, I was young. But we'd go see Marvin Gaye or little Stevie Wonder just come out. So George loved all the soul food and all that great entertainment. So we became friends. And in 1963, George came back to Toronto to fight, and he was fighting at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Oh my God.
And I fought on the undercards, a Pro-Am card. And after the fight, I was in the dressing room. I won the fight. And I was in the dressing room after, and this guy comes in. I describe him, he looks sort of like a Damien Runyon character. You know, he had a hat on, a cigar in his mouth, and he says, hey, kid, I like the way you fight. And his name was Sully Sullivan. We became good friends after. He became a very legendary trainer and ran a gym in Toronto. So he says to me, I like the way you fight, kid, but
That's Sarah.
he says, you gotta get rid of that
You're
name.
my shot.
So I said, what do you mean get rid of that name? He says, Jesus Christ. Your name's Charles. It's a terrible name. They introduce you. It's Charles. He said, you gotta get it. So he says, I'm gonna call you Spider. And I thought, I was offended. What the hell you call me Spider for? He said, because you fight like you got 6 hands. Because I have good hand speed. So I sort of liked it because, I mean, you know, when you get introduced in the ring, part of the introduction is when you get really hyped up. You know, when Michael Buffer is introducing Floyd Mayweather or Manny Pacquiao or somebody, you know, ladies and gentlemen, in the blue corner, wearing the red trunks with the white trim, he weighed in this morning at 178 pounds with a record of 15-2 with 13 big knockouts from Detroit, Michigan. They say Charles. It sounds terrible. You know, Charles, because I'd be like waiting for the bell to ring. You know, I always used to be dancing on my feet and looking at the opponent like you're, you know, the fearful stare. And he said, when he say Spider, man, how would be? So and he gave me the name Spider, and everybody calls me Spider. Thank you, Josh.
No problem.
But my wife, she calls me darling. You know, things like that. Sugar. Maybe, you know.
See?
So what was your?
I mean, she depends on how it feels. To everybody here,
Yeah.
Yes,
Cheers.
I got everybody's name, but cheers, darling. What's your name?
Kedisha. Kedisha.
Kanisha. I have a nickname for you. I'm gonna call you Parking Ticket.
Why's that?
You got fine written all over you.
Go on, Spider.
Such a line, isn't it?
Someone watches Family Guy.
Write a book. Teach you young dudes how to talk to women.
Oh, gosh.
Women like to be flattered. Women like sincerity. Women like a little humor. Women like respect from their man. I taught all my crew that coming up. I might have got in trouble and went to jail, but when it comes to the ladies, you treat them right.
Happy life is a happy wife.
A what?
That's the other way around.
Or happy wife is a happy
Well, you know who says it best? The Dr. Phil. If
God.
your wife ain't happy, you ain't happy. Now, if a man loves his wife, my wife gets upset, man, I'd do anything to get her happy again. She's the one holding all the power
Damn
in
it,
my
Sarah.
house because I hate her being mad at me. So I'd be suckholing and everything. Tony, let's get back to work. That's why I got my name Spider. Now, the reason I love coming to these sessions is because wherever one of you are sitting now, I was there. I went back to school at 34 years old with no education. I had a learning disability, which was sort of discovered in, I failed grade 3 and grade 4. Back in the day, they would fail you. Today, they don't. And I think it's a mistake, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're not ready for grade 5, why should I shove you into grade 5? And then into grade 6, and then into grade 7, and then into grade 8, and you're not ready. It's like a manufacturing line of one-fits-all education. That's no good. And it's wrong, and they're still doing it. And that's why you get kids coming out of high school that can't put together a sentence, let alone a paragraph. And I noticed a lot of that. So I flunked grade 3, grade 4. They put me through a battery of psychological tests, and I discovered that I had a learning disability. Mine was I could not process information as fast as most children. In other words, probably everybody in this room can absorb information quicker than me. I took that as being stupid and dumb. No, it wasn't. It's just the way it worked for me. So in other words, the teacher would have a lesson, and when she or he was finished, they would say, if anyone cannot understand or has a question about what you just went through, please raise your hand. I wouldn't raise my hand. Why wouldn't I raise my hand?
You're embarrassed.
That's right. It's all part of peer pressure. Kids laugh at each other. They poke fun at you.
Yeah.
You can be very... I work with a lot of young people today. all over North America, and I find that they can be so nasty to one another. But you and us, we all have to learn as individuals to rise above that. See, it's not easy for a kid to. But once you've risen above that, you get to the point where you don't care what other people think of you anymore. Because they will try to control you through that, your emotions. So I'd sit in that class, and I would let all that go. But by the time I just gave up in grade 5, they put me in a special grade 5, and that's where I stayed until I was 15 years old. And then my father signed me out of school to get a job. What kind of job is a 15-year-old going to get living in Detroit? I had no driver's license. I was too young. Too young to join the military. There were no fast food stores like there was no Foot Locker. There was no Swiss Chalet. There was no McDonald's, Harvey's. There was nothing like that. There were no jobs. But you see, I didn't give a hell about work. At 10 years old, I was already breaking and entering homes, burglarizing with a bunch of kids. When I dropped out of school, I wanted to be on the corners. That was my whole life. Back to the lure of the streets, very strong of me. And I'm going to be straight up with you. Because we all have many reasons why we drop out of school, we return to school, or we change jobs, or whatever reason you're here. But you're here because you have a dream, you have an aspiration, or you're trying to find what you want. And I didn't know that at 15. I didn't understand what options were. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a chair?
Now, who are these ladies invading our premises?
We're here if you want to join. You want to come?
You got a pig? We all set yet?
Yeah.
Where was I at? Don't forget, I took a lot of shots. I got pugilistic dementia then. I took a lot of shots. And, so here, oh yes. So just to reiterate, I dropped out of school at 15. I actually had a grade 5 special ed. Now most kids I worked with in special ed, really underneath it all, no matter what they may try to, have you believe in terms of, they might a lot of them try to act tough, or they try to hide that inferiority, that inferior complex. And when you get that, it's terrible. Because once you begin to believe you're really dumb, or you're really slow, you begin to feel inferior. And you give up. You give up on the corporate world. You look for other options, as I did. I grew up in Detroit, in South Detroit. There's a lot of crime, a lot of poverty. My father worked all his life, and he didn't own a house. He owned an old car, and he got paid every 2 weeks, and every nickel of that went back into something. He didn't even have enough to give us allowance. Now, I'm just telling you my story from where I was at. But I noticed there were certain people driving big cars, had nice clothes, pocket full of money, and enjoying life. They were the street hustlers. The pimps, the loan sharks, the rounders, and some who were preachers and things like that. Excuse me, sir. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Your name is? Allie? Good to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
So at any rate, I got involved with that. So someday I went back to school in a minute. From 15 to 26 years old, I spent 7 years in prison. Not all at one time. Longest stretch was 3 years. In prison, we're not talking about scared straight, that crap, where you got guards in between you, and you got prisoners yelling at you, so, I mean, that's entertainment, that's exactly what it is. That's not what it's like to be in prison. And, I speak to a lot of young people. I remember coming out of prison the first time, the kind of street cred he gave us in Detroit. Everybody thought, man, this guy's a hero, he's been in prison. And I wonder, I just think, in prison, they put you to bed every night. They wake you up every morning. They tell you what to eat, drink, watch, wear. They take everything away from you, your freedom. You have no choices. And we were strip searched all the time. It would come down on us out of nowhere at 3 o'clock in the morning if it felt like it. Take you out of your cell, make you lay down on the floor in just your underwear. Cavity search you and everything. Prison's a tough place. And I kept going back. But when I got out at 24, I decided I ain't coming back. That's the first time I ever set a goal. And my goal was I will never come back here again. When I got out of prison for the last time, let me tell you one thing first of all. My mother's American, my father's Canadian. I had dual citizenships. One thing that saved me, I didn't have to go back to Detroit. Because every time I went back to Detroit, I hooked up with the same crew. From one way or another, we just seemed to gravitate together. And I'm not blaming them. See, first of all, you must take responsibility for your life. You can't blame other people. Because, and that's one thing that I learned. You cannot blame other people. Even when I joined the gang, I was molested. I mean, I could see when I was 10 years old, I was already running with they didn't call them bangers then. We had crews. And by the time I reached 15, 16, I knew the difference between right and wrong. But I was overpowered by lust for money. I wanted to look good. I wanted money in my pocket. I loved the freedom of the street. Didn't matter that I broke my mother and father's heart. Now, most of my guys in our crew didn't have a father. I'm the only one that did. I had a mother and father. We were poor. We lived in poverty. We lived in tough times in Detroit. Racism, and you talk about police brutality, you have no idea. They expected us to respect police officers that treated us like we were punching bags, like we were filth, like we were subhuman. See, Detroit recruited their police officers up out of Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi, and they hated blacks. It was Jim Crow. I mean, they would stop you. You talk about profiling. I was talking to a leadership conference, youth leadership conference the other day, and telling them, you think you're badly profiled in Toronto? Listen, Toronto police force, compared to Detroit, they're angels. Oh yeah, they got some jerks on there, shouldn't be on there. And I agree 100%, just like York. I used to know the police chief up here. He's a good friend of mine, Armin Labarge. He's a class act, really. Of all the police chiefs I know, he's about the best. And he integrated that force. You see people from all walks of, all cultures on that police force. And he's not there anymore. But they're still compared to Detroit. But at any rate, when I got out of prison, I had nothing. No education. That's the worst thing. Now, I'll tell you real quickly. Because I want to ask you something now. See, I was 10 years old. I knew what I wanted to be. I know a lot of people will say, at 10 years old, kids want to be everything. They want to be a fireman, a police officer. They want to be, most kids, they want to be either a hockey player, a basketball player, a fashion designer, because there's so much TV around, right? Commercialism does that to them. What do they see when they see that? They look at the red carpet of the Grammys or the Oscars and they see how Jay-Z and Beyonce live, or how the hockey players live and all the praise they get. So they become cheerleaders in life. Pom-pom boys and girls. I got a buddy, he's successful, but he's already got his kid teaching him to worship the Maple Leafs. I mean, it's a business. It's a sport. But that's the way it is today. People want all that, but they're not going to get it. But they want it. Your career aspirations have to be realistic. And you honestly should know within yourself if you're capable. And if you are, then you pursue it like a heat-seeking missile. If you believe you can, don't let nobody around you tell you you can't, because everybody told me I couldn't. And I believed it, and that's why it took me many years. See, when I was 10 years old, I've shared this story with Amy many times. When I was 10 years old, one afternoon, my cousin came over. He lived about 4 doors down from me in the Brewster Douglas projects in Detroit. Now, anybody ever been to Detroit here? And you got back alive, that's good. The Brewster projects, guess who grew up there, born there? Joe Louis, the great fighter. Smokey Robinson, Diana Ross, all come out of the Brewster projects. Tommy Hearns, great fighter, boom, you know. They all come out of there. And Spider Jones. Any rate, one day my cousin comes over, my cousin Sonny. Sonny wasn't just my first cousin. Sonny's mother and my mother were sisters, so Sonny was like my big brother. I was 10 years old, and I won't forget this day as long as I live. Sonny comes over with his crew. Sonny had a crew with him all the time. 4 or 5 guys, and they all sharp dressers. And there was Ducky, Slick, and Sonny. Ducky, they called him Ducky. You know why they called him Ducky? He walks like a duck. He'd be... And even when he danced, he'd be... Looked like he was taking a fit. But Ducky could dance. And they come over, and Sonny said, come on, we'll take you to the Fox Theater. Now, the Fox Theater is an icon in Detroit. All the greats, man, opened up the Fox Theater. James Brown, Aretha Franklin, you know, all of them, man. And my favorite singer of all time. Take a guess who that is.
Gladys Knight.
Male or female?
I like Gladys Knight. She's one of my favorites, but...
Tina Turner.
Who?
Tina Turner.
Dionne
Warwick.
I'll tell you a story about Tina Turner very quickly. When I first got into radio, I was working at a CHW in Oakville, and Tina Turner was playing the Royal York, the Imperial Room, and I got a chance to interview her. And she was after all those things happening with Ike Turner and that. And I had a chance to interview her, and I told her, I said, Tina, you know what, I was always a huge fan of yours. I watched you on American Bandstand. You know, she's still a beautiful woman. This was back in '88. And she came and sat on my lap during the interview. And she gave me a kiss on the cheek. I never washed my face for a moment. She was so beautiful, and she's just a beautiful, beautiful woman. But I just want to share that story with you. But no, my favorite singer, and you're going to laugh, and I got some CDs for you after, Justin Bieber. You want one of his CDs after?
I was actually going to say that too.
I was just say Justin Bieber. You got to be kidding. But anyway, no, I have many favorite singers, man. I'm in everything. But anyway, so my cousin takes me to the Fox Theater. I'm 10 years old, and everybody else in there is, most people are teens in there. They're going from there from 15. It was Saturday afternoon. It was teen afternoon, and this Fox Theater has this big, beautiful stage. It's just big and beautiful, and it has all these balconies up there where, you know, it's just a beautiful place. And there's a deep voice that comes over the system. It says, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big welcome to Alan Freed. Now, I bet you nobody in here knows who Alan Freed is. Anybody heard of Alan Freed?
I just did today, right now.
Alan Freed was in a time when being a radio personality was huge. It was when R&B let's just say, white music and black music were beginning to come together. But nobody had the guts to play it. There was all these great black artists out there. And it was called race music. White music was called pop. Black music was called race. And the white kids were digging this music, man. They were moving to it. All these guys like Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Fats Domino. But white DJs weren't allowed to play it. So here's Alan Freed, this little white guy. He became one of my all-time heroes. Little white guy out of Cleveland, Ohio, who started to play that stuff. And it got so popular that he was hired from WXYZ radio, WNBC radio in New York City, and he began to go coast to coast like buttered toast every night. This little crazy guy from Cleveland would be talking all this jive and bringing in all these great singers from this that nobody ever heard of, Jackie Wilson, and guys like, they were starting to make it. And he coined a phrase that everybody today, it's a household word, rock and roll. He coined the phrase. Look him up when you go home tonight. Alan Freed, and see how this guy should be talked about. Not Dick Clark. Dick Clark wouldn't let people of color on American Bandstand until he got to heat in the 60s. From 57, when he came on to 1962, us black guys weren't allowed to bring our girlfriends and be on American Bandstand.
Really?
That's the truth. That's the real truth about him. I still respect Dick Clark. He did it. He had to do it that way, but he still gave a lot of black musicians an opportunity. But he didn't do that. Alan Freed, this little guy, opened the doors. And he had a show on. He didn't care what anybody said. He loved singers. He had mixed up. So here, when he comes on stage, he got this huge. He comes on. They introduce him. He's waving to the crowd. He's throwing kisses up to the people in the nosebleed, and I'm watching him. I'm 10 years old. And I'm watching this with my cousins and all them, and the crowd just explodes into applause. These are all kids off every major hood in America. And he began to introduce all these singers, and they'd come on, and they'd, the Temptations and all them, they were, like he knew them, and I said, oh man, this is what I want to be. I was 10 years old, and I knew I wanted to be a radio disc jockey. I'm going to ask you a question. How old do you think I was when I got my first job in radio? How old do you think I was?
32.
35.
18.
40.
44.
Josh, what did you say?
18.
This man has faith in me.
He Googled it.
Now, what did you say, my man?
35.
Huh?
35.
You have no faith in me, man. I'm looking right behind tell you, brother. I thought you'd give me better than that.
I'm just trying to connect the dots.
I'm joking. How old do you think I was?
Early 20s.
Early 20s. What about you?
You said like 15.
15? Wow. I'll tell you all night how it was. Because all those years that first of all, when I left the Fox Theater that night, with that dream, it wasn't getting mine. It was seared into me. So we're walking up Woodward Avenue. About 8 of us, And back then they walked like, that's how they walked. They walk now. They got pants all down around their, What you doing, man? That's why they get caught today. You pants around your ass.
The wiggers.
They try to pull their pants up and get the hell out of there. But anyway, I was boasting to my buddies, man, I couldn't even speak proper English. The way I talk today, I learned that through years of practice. Because when you go into radio, you can't be, man, what you talking about? I said, man, we'll be the same.
Oh, I'm saying.
My cousin said, come here. Listen, little cousin, why don't you quit talking all that, that's what he said. All that mumble jumble. You ain't gonna be in radio. That's all I ever heard. People would laugh at me. How many got a dream here? How many actually have a dream? Raise your hand, let me see it. I'm looking. Never be ashamed. You don't have a dream? You don't know what you want to be?
Undecisive right now.
Okay, that's fair enough. You're young, but you're 21, 22.
24.
How old are you, Josh?
23.
Josh, the youngest one here, I think. Okay. Now, how many have a dream? How many know? Okay. How many on this side know? What would you like?
Something to do with like hairdressing, aesthetics, something like that. But
So that, and that can be creative.
yeah.
And you make a good living. You get in the right place. Yeah, good enough. So you pretty much know. So you're going to look in that direction.
Yes.
Then you have to understand. Then I think the first thing is what's your game plan to get there. How am I going to get there? And while you're going to school, you try to work in that area somewhere, even if it's just clean the hair off the floor. Contacts.
That's fair.
Volunteer. Contacts. Very important. What do you want to be?
My own company,
What kind of company though?
IT.
You good at computers and that?
Yeah.
That's good.
Took part of my first computerized device at the age of 7.
I stole my first computer at the age of 30.
What was the street value on that?
It fell off a truck. What do I know? What about you, Josh?
I want to be content and stable.
You want what?
I want to be content and stable.
But you have a sort of a vision of where you're
Yes.
going in terms of a career?
Yes.
What is it?
Pharmacy tech.
A pharmacy tech?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of people that could use information on pharmaceutical products. But you want to keep it straight, right? Okay, so that's okay. So that's what you want to be, and
Give 'em my drugs.
You made your plans to move, go to
Yeah.
school. Good for you. What about you, ma'am?
Well, I'm going through my 4th career. I want to work in a hospital. I just graduated in 2012, or 2012. So I want to work in a hospital. I want to help people. I want to make a difference. I want to...
You got that kind of face. You look like a very kind, doesn't she? A benevolent face. Yes. Anyway, and that's a wonderful occupation. My wife works. My wife's always been she works in a nursing home, a large chain of nursing home. One time she managed three different areas, but that was her mission. That's what she felt gratification. Listen, you got to enjoy what you're doing in life. That's what makes it great. Of all the things I do, what I enjoy doing most is trying to inspire people. Honest God, it's become, it's like, I'm not a particularly religious person, but I'm very thankful to my God that He gave me that kind of heart. All the things that I went through in life have made me a better person, and I cannot feel at peace if I see one person suffering. But for instance, what do you want to be?
What do I want? Well, I want to be me first of all. But what I want to do is
gotta be me. I gotta be me.
I have a clothing line called Walk Tall Wear, and I want to be a motivational speaker to the young people today.
You want to be a motivational speaker?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, to be a motivational speaker, really what you would call a credible one, you've got to accomplish something. Kids go on that. When I walk into the room, most of them know I'm an ex-con. That gives me the street cred. But you know what's good about street cred? I can connect with them. Once I connect with them, they begin to listen to me. Then I slowly express and share insight on what it's really like to live in the street life. Because these kids think, because of, unfortunately, hip-hop culture, these kids think it's good to be. So do your clothing line. You can't work on two things at one time. You can, but I'm zero in on that.
100%.
You understand what I mean? When you become successful with that, suddenly everybody wants you around. Now you can share all of that with him. That's what I would say to you.
Yeah.
What about you, sir?
Motocross shop, basically mechanic. That's what
I like that. My son is.
I'm just not licensed yet. Working for my license.
Get your license. Get your license. My son was not that good academically, but I noticed he liked to tinker with the cars in the driveway. And man, he'd get my driveway all greased up, and we just got it fixed. And one day he brought an old clunker home, had it hauled in the driveway. Said, "Dad, come on, please." He'd get down there under the hood, and he'd do everything. So when he graduated from high school, we sent him to Georgian College, and he studied small engine mechanics. Then he got a job working in a small engine shop fixing lawnmowers and stuff. Got his license and then went to be an auto mechanic. My son takes home $1,100-$1,200 a week now.
Nice.
Owns his own home, one block from me, which is good because my granddaughter's there. I see her every day when I want. She's 6 years old, and she's the love of my entire life. She is my life. I could talk about her right now. You could get me on her. She's 6 years old, Jamie Lee Jones. And she's got Pappy wrapped around her. She can get anything out of me. My kids get mad at me because Pappy, she sits on my lap or gives me a kiss. I'll do anything for her. I do. I have 2 granddaughters, and they're my life. So anyway, that's a good. You know where you're going? Get it, man. What about you?
I want to reopen my renovation company.
You renovate?
Yes, sir.
People need renovators today. But have a plan. Make it right. If you want to start small, one house at a time.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you open up, and I know a guy that used to renovate, and then he started doing, trying to do too many things at once. He couldn't depend on his help. He ended up losing money. One thing at a time. Stay focused. One of the reasons it took me so long to get my first job in radio, I had no game plan at all. You got to have a game plan. You got to have a game plan. And if you don't know what you're doing, ask somebody. You know what I mean? Ask somebody to help you if you don't know what you're doing. Even when I didn't work in radio, I'd be at home and I'd practice. In the car, I'd practice playing music. And when I was in my early 30s, I met a woman. Changed my whole life. Up until then, I was like drift. I was like a boat with no anchor, drifting from dock to dock, job to job with a police record. It was terrible. Let me tell you something. Who wants to hire a guy that served 7 years in prison? That's why I tell young people today, when you have a police record, it seriously limits your options. And at my drop-in center, I have the kids that start in there at 6 or 7, 8 years old. I was there last night, and I love these children. But they come from a high-crime area. Many of them come from single parent, where mothers and fathers have divorced or separated. And I love these children. And I talk to them a lot about police records. You'll never work in a bank, become a lawyer, a school teacher, or other things if you have a police record. I had a hell of a time getting a job. So I tell people that's important. So when I met this woman that changed my life. We're still married, by the way. 40 years we've been married. And I started dating her, and I didn't tell her that I had been in prison for about 6 months. I mean, one day I'm boxing, and I'm training for it was a North American Golden Gloves, and I'm in the gym, and I'm hitting the bags, and one of my friends come up and said, "Hey, Spider, you gotta come down to the lounge, little lounge about a block down, where all the kids, 22, 23, 24, hung out." And I said, "Oh, no, man, going down there, now I'm working out. I ain't messing with ladies no more. Right now I ain't messing around. I don't need it." My brother come up. "Man, you got to go downstairs and check out this fox." They want me to come down because, I was the kind of guy that had a gift of gab. And so I used to always be the one that perhaps, made the first step. And then the rest of the guys would step up after. And apparently there was 3 of these girls at a table, and they were looking real fine. So this guy kept telling me this one woman, she's here, man, she's gorgeous. So I finally said, okay, so I got a shower, check my afro out. I had hair back then. My head's on a diet now. But I had, check it all out, and had these tight knit pants on with the boots up. That's when they dressed back then, And I had a 6-pack then, now it's 12. But so I walked into the bar and looking all around, and I spotted him down the back, sitting with my friends. So I went down, because this woman, that's why I'm giving her credit. This woman really, if you're married, you got a good spouse in your corner, man. That means so much. But if you haven't, you still have to concentrate on what you're doing. And I stepped over and I saw her, and she wouldn't talk to me. I'm sure this story so much. She wouldn't even look at me. And I'm like, man, damn, I was a good-looking dude back then. At least I thought I was. Had the muscles and but man, she wouldn't even look at me. So I threw that line on her. I just, it worked. I said, you know what, baby? I got a nickname for you. She said, what's that? I said, I'm going to call you parking ticket. She said, parking ticket? I said, you got fine written all over you. And she started laughing. And then we started dancing and talking. We started dating. And I didn't tell her for 6 months that I was in prison. Then we're going back to Detroit to meet my parents and everybody. Them people talk. I said, oh, by the way, I got to tell you something. She said, what? She's looking at me like I said, I still remember telling her. I got to tell you something, baby. She said, what? I said, I'm an ex-con. I've been to prison. For what? I said, murder and rape. No, I didn't. Please. She looked at me. I said, no, baby. I'm sorry, I'm joking. I never murdered her. Nothing like that. I've never. But I was a robber and a thief. Most of my stuff was heisty. We had a couple fences in Detroit area that could move hot goods right across the country. Our crew would steal it. We'd break into warehouses and steal leather goods, clothing, application, not everything. Things that could move, electrical appliances, and we made a lot of money. I was making more at 15, 16 than my father was. But we got nailed. And the last time we got nailed was just too much. To prison time, not for me, because I'm a guy that likes my freedom. And prison life, it makes you a different person, because I had to be crazy all the time, act crazy. People try to do things in there to you. It's like there's all kinds of people that are mentally ill, gang banging, Aryan. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. It's a terrible place to be. And I'll tell you something, all prison does is make you worse. There's no rehabilitation in prison. They don't care. They talk a lot of jive on the outside. But most guys I know and women going to prison come out the same way, even worse. Angry. They feel inferior. They don't want to tell you all these things. Everybody treats you like you're a leper. But my wife said, you plan on going back anytime soon? And I said, baby, never again. She said, if you do, you lose me. I'm not going to wait for you. We stepped on off to Detroit. She met the family. Everything was good. Come back to Toronto. Got married a couple months later. City Hall. City Hall, that's right. No frills wedding. $10. My daughter got married, it cost us $14,000. She got divorced 7 years later. My wife and I stayed married. My wife started bugging me to go back to school. I ain't going back to school. Why do you think I want to go back to school? Scared. I was scared, yeah. I'm an ex-fighter, gangster, been in prison, fought some of the toughest cops in Detroit, been beat up by the best of them. Why do you think I was scared again? Why? Why do you think I didn't want to go back to school?
Because you said that you went when you were like grade 4 or 5 and kind of feeling that
I didn't think you're right.
Yeah, you were capable of.
There you go.
Yeah.
I felt inferior. I couldn't handle it. Has anybody ever felt that way here? Don't feel that way. It's a natural instinct. You understand what I'm saying? Take it from me. Take it from a guy that flunked grade 3 and grade 4 and pissed the bed till he was 14. Yeah, I pissed the bed till I was 14. Matter of fact, I probably invented the first water pad. But you know what I'm saying? But the point is this. I believe that way, and half the kids in my class did. They thought they were inferior. The difference between success and failure is what you think of yourself. Am I worth it? You gotta find ways to develop your self-worth and your self-confidence. Once you have esteem, you don't care what anybody says. That's how I feel, man. My friends all laughed at me when I went back to school, but I wouldn't go my wife. I had a pushy wife. I'm glad she's pushy. She pushed me out the door today. I said, I got to drive all the way up. She said, get out. Don't whine to me. I'll see you when you get back. And remember the board meeting tonight. 40 years later, she's still cracking on me.
She's amazing.
She's an amazing woman. I feel blessed. Well, she's blessed too. No, I think so.
I know so.
I've been with the same woman 40 years, and I've never been with another one.
Here it is.
That ain't easy. You got beautiful women all over this room, man. You know what I mean? I'm just being straight up with you, brother.
Preach on, Reverend.
It takes strength and it takes love, but when you got trust and you break that, you can't buy it. See, you can't buy trust or self-respect. You can buy a lot of things in life. People think they got money, they got everything. You ain't got self-respect. You ain't got real love. I ain't gonna blow all that for one night. Just to give some woman eternal bliss for one night. I ain't gonna do that. That's not me.
Hell yeah. Screw that shit.
But she kept telling me to go to school. Now, I was working at a nightclub in Toronto. Now, West Toronto. Now, this club now has changed. It's called the Drake. Back in the day,
Christ.
it was a bad place. All the hustlers hung out there, the gangsters, the ex-criminals, the prostitutes, drug dealers, crack houses, right up in the Drake Hotel back in the 70s. So one day I'm looking through the Star. This jockey wanted. I go over and I meet a little guy named Gino. Gino is the owner. Little Italian guy about this big. He hires me. First night on the job, I'm playing music. I'm getting $75 a night. That was good money back
A lot
then.
of money.
That's where I went back to school. That was the
Back in the
70s.
70s? Damn.
It's huge, man.
Fight breaks out on the dance floor. Gino comes rushing over. Spider. I said, what? He said, break up at the fight. Break up at the fight. I said, hell no. I ain't here to break up fights. I'm here to, this isn't my job. There's this guy by the door. His name is Peter. He's supposed to do it. Peter looks like Tarzan. He's about 6'3". He's got arms like this. You break up fights now? The police are going to come. They're going to close it down. You got a no job. I needed the money. I had no options, no education, right? I got to take what they give me. I go break up the fight. People ripping on my clothes and stuff, taking shots at you. And I know this was like, you're crazy people. You were talking about drunks, junkies, and a couple nights later, break up the fight. I break up the fight again. Third time he said it to me. I said, hey, how much you pay Peter a night? I pay same with you, $75 a night. I said, well, Peter is a magician. Every time a fight breaks out, he disappears. I got to break up the fight. I said, you fire him and give me his job. He fired Peter. I got the job. Now I'm making $150 a night. That was good money. But this place, remember, this is where all the gangsters come in, all the hustlers. I seen drug deals in the corner. The prostitutes are coming there after, but I had a rule. I used to tell all the hustlers and the pimps and everything in there. I'm using these words because they're true. I say, in here, you don't start no shit. I ain't getting in your business, but when you come in here, you bringing it into my business. Let the ladies alone in here. One night I'm playing, and I wrote it in my book, the whole story. I'm playing the music and I hear a scream coming from the woman's bathroom. And it's a loud one, so I rush into the bathroom. Here's a guy by the name of Cool Breeze. He's a pimp. And he's beating up this little woman who is a prostitute. And I said, what the hell are you doing in there? I grabbed him and I threw him off her. And I picked her up and I said, come on, clean yourself up. And I said, man, you get out of here. And I turned my back for a minute. Next time I come around, he's got a razor. straight razor, and I block it. He gets me. See right there?
Ouch.
He's going for my throat. And man, I studied commando and that stuff anyway. I took a thing, a big garbage can, and I just threw it. It got him right here, and he went down. And I'm leaning over him, see if he's dead. He looks dead. And that's when the door come open and the cops came in. Handcuffed me and took me out. Now here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to jail for 10 years. Now here's my wife at home, pregnant, with our first kid. And life is going pretty good. And I'm telling you, now you talk about being scared. I'm scared because I think I'm going to jail. I'm scared. I'm sitting in the cell at 14 Division, and people next to me drunks, a couple bikers and stuff in there for stuff, and they're all talking. I ain't saying nothing. I'm just mad. Don't even come near me. Just leave me alone. About 4 o'clock in the morning, I dozed off, and you hear clanking. Jones, you're free. Like, you wouldn't believe how I felt. You're free. I said, what do you mean free? What happened? He said, you know that guy you got into it with? He says he's wanted in Buffalo. I mean, this guy was wanted for assaulting women, doing all kinds of stuff. And they sent him back to Buffalo. I got off. So I get home, get in the house. Well, we live in an apartment on Keel. And I sneak through to go to the kitchen and get a drink, you know, or something. And suddenly I see a flash coming at me. It's my wife. She attacks me and starts pounding on my shoulders and shit. She said, I told you about that. You leave that effing job. I don't want that. I can't live like this. We're going to have a kid. A couple days later, I come back. She's got all these pamphlets. She's been out shopping at all these different colleges. She says, you're going back to school. I said, like hell I am. You're going back to school. Now, I thought, okay, I did so badly in school in the past. I got 5 minutes left?
You have about 20.
Okay.
You have until 1:30.
Oh, shit. Can we get a break?
Because they took walk away, you know. Spider, you want a break? You want a break too?
I could use
Some
it.
water?
These guys want a break? Give them a break and I'll complete it with the other one. If you want a break,
Yeah.
put a cigarette
Let's
away.
take 5. Derek, would you
Then I'll
please
tell you
open
about
the
my
window
school
at the
and
back?
how I got
Let's
into
get
radio.
some.
Am I the official classroom window opener?
5 minutes.
Then I'd come home at night, and she went to every major community college in the Toronto area. But remember, I had a grade 5 remedial education. In other words, you know, it was what do they call it today? Special ed. And I meet a lot of young kids in special ed that really are down on themselves. See, self-esteem is a state of mind. So if you choose to look down on yourself because of past things that have happened or past failures, then you're going to continue to be that way. You have to develop that sense of self-worth within you. You can't wait for the world to do it because commercialism makes you, basically, you are the prey. They are the predator. If you don't dress like this, you're nothing. If you don't look like this, you're nothing. If you don't drive a car like this, you're nothing. That's what they convince you. So there are ways to fight this. Because I was really down on myself. That's why I wasn't going to go back to school. But I had this woman that believed that she'd listen to me talk. She said, you'd be great in radio. First of all, you have a profound sense of music. I could tell you who wrote a song, who produced the song. Back in that day, I could tell you everything you wanted to know about music. And I had a lot of experience in sports and politics. For a guy that had no education, I had the street education. That came a long way for me, so I did go back to school. I finally went back to school. My wife talked me into going to Seneca College, first of all. Why? Because they had an upgrading class. And was called college prep. First day in class, I'm sitting down. I think about 34 years old. I'm sitting down in the classroom. There's about 30 kids in the class. Everybody's younger than me. And I felt so out of place. This is not for me. And a lot of people feel that way when they first come in. You just feel uncomfortable, unstable. And after about 10 minutes, panic started to set in. Because I kept remembering back in the day when I flunked at everything I did. And people told me I was stupid. All that baggage was in here. I finally got up. I looked at all these kids. Back then they were talking about Michael Jackson. I mean, because it was the late 70s, 79. I mean, they're talking about Michael Jackson, all this stuff, man. I come from the Temptations. And I come from all that other stuff. But I was basically, what I was older than these kids, so I just figured the same for me. Got up and walked the door. I opened the door to walk out, and as I got the door open,
I'm here.
the teacher came in. His name was Doug Harris. I'll never forget it because fate. Doug Harris came in and said, "Where you going? We're just starting a class." I said, "No, I'm getting out of here. It's not for me." He said, "It's not for you. You don't know. You just got here." He said, "I know who you are because I was pretty well known around Toronto. I was a four-time Golden Glove boxing champion, so I was in the press a lot." He says, "It takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing in the ring." I said, "This is different, man. This isn't for me." He said, "Look, do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Take the day and invest it in yourself. Take the day and invest it in yourself," he said. He took me like this, and he walked me over to my seat and sat me down and said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. Stay after class, we'll talk. Anything I can do to help you, I will." It was a blessing. That day changed my life. Because he talked me into staying, and after he sat and we talked, here was a teacher that cared. This is why I defend teachers. I'm sick of the press and people putting teachers down. Yeah, there are some teachers that are lousy, but for the most part, teachers don't get enough credit. Teachers deal with kids with all kinds of hang-ups and problems at home. Teacher spends more time with the kid than we do. And yet they got 30 kids in their class they got to deal with. It's tough. But I had two teachers, Doug Harris and Margaret Hauser. God bless her. And they're both gone now. But they believed in me. And whenever I had a problem, I'd go to them and talk it out with them. You need to ask people if you don't know what you're doing. Don't be ashamed to ask. Because there are always people out there who will help you. And don't be ashamed. It may be tough. For some of you it's tough because you're shy. You're shy to look at you. Are you shy?
I used to be, but then I realized that if you don't ask, you don't get the right answer.
That's right. Asking you should. You know? So, what I began to discover in that class, by the way, I became very close to every kid in that class after. They were all younger than me. They became good friends. One of them today is one of my dearest friends. Actually, 3 or 4 of them, and a couple of them working in radio in Ottawa. And one is a writer. What I found out was that I still had that learning disability, and I still have it today. So, I have to read something 5 or 6 times before it processes. But once it does, I never forget it. I graduated 3 years later with high honors. I won the Board of Governors Award.
Damn.
I won all kinds of things. But while I was going to school, I got involved in the newspaper at Seneca College. I got involved in the radio at Seneca College. I got involved in the area that I was pursuing. And then I got involved with Rogers Cable. But instead, they gave me a little show called Sports Spectrum. But instead of just doing little stuff, I put my crew together, and we go down and interview the Toronto Maple Leafs. If somebody came to town, we'd interview them. So you see my book, you see all kinds of pictures of Muhammad Ali. I didn't even tell you about him. He's one of the guys who helped keep me out of jail. Muhammad Ali and I spent a lot of time together. When he came here to fight George Chavel, he trained at the gym I lived in. We became friends, and he told me one time, he was so impressed with me as my music knowledge, that he said, if I come back to Toronto and you ain't on radio, I'm gonna put a whooping on you worse than your daddy ever did. I said, you can try. You can try. Oh, he was funny. I'd tell him, I'll take you out in the street, man. He whipped my ass like if he wanted it. He was like, I sparred with him. Like, he was 6'3", like Ali. First time I met him, I was staring at him. I said, what are you looking at me for? I said, I'm trying to find a scar on you. You're the heavyweight champion of the world. You ain't got a mark on your face. You so pretty, I don't know where to shake your hand or kiss you. He was good looking, man. He had them thick eyebrows, and Ali he was so good to me. When he left Toronto in 1966, I traveled with him for about 6 months. And I sparred with him, and I can tell you, he never hurt me once. Muhammad Ali became my role model in many ways, because Muhammad Ali is what I call a metaphor for life, or boxing is. I use boxing because I spent a lot of time in boxing. I know a lot of fighters that could have went all the way. They had the skills to become heavyweight champions of the world, but along the way, they got knocked down, and they didn't get back up into the fight. Life is like that. You may get knocked down once, twice, 2, 3, 4 times, but you got to get back up. And be proud of yourself when you do. You don't need nobody else's permission to be what you want in life. You need yours. There are people that will criticize you. There are people that won't support you. There are friends because they don't want to get out of that comfort zone. It takes a lot of heart to get out of a comfort zone, get off that couch, get out of that house, and go out there and pursue what you want. But when shit happens, you wouldn't believe the gratification you get from it. And along the way, you begin by setting goals. Don't think it's going to happen today. This building started with the first brick. And then it became a foundation in the building. That's what happens in your career. It doesn't happen overnight. Today's young people want too much instant gratification. That happens to some of them, like it did Justin Bieber. I mean, I read the guy was out of Stratford, a little country boy. He got discovered, but he didn't make it on his own talent. I'm not saying he can't sing, it's not my style. But he had Usher behind him. And all that already there. You know, don't be buying in all that stuff. It's easy to get the teeny boppers. You can fill us with anything when we're that age. I mean, on a world stage, this guy couldn't carry Michael Jackson's jockstrap. And yet look at how big he is, and people, I mean, I got out of school and I went over to, and here's what else I did. I went over to Ryerson and studied creative writing. Because I wanted to be a journalist. If I told anybody when I was 15 years old that I would have had, if anybody told me when I was 15 years old that I would have interviewed one day, Spider, one day you're going to interview the greatest basketball player in the world, the greatest boxer in the world, some of the greatest actors, I would have said you're crazy. But I had my own radio show. I went coast to coast, like buttered toast, baby, on the Fan 590 from 1993 to 2000. I went coast to coast on the Fan. You know who my producer was in those years? George Stroumboulopoulos.
Nice. Yeah, right.
You'll see the picture of him. See with me and him in the book.
He was a kid back
He
then.
was 19 years old. I hired him right out of school. Nobody gave him a job. He had earrings in his nose. He looked like.
He's on the air.
But George, I want to show you something.
He did much music, and then he's
That's him.
got his own show now
He's right there.
on CBC.
George Stroumboulopoulos. You ever seen I'm on TV, George Stroumboulopoulos?
Yeah.
Yep, I know he
The
is.
other guy in there is a guy by the name of Jeff Merrick, who is now with Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then there's who else here? Russell Peters.
Damn right.
I
There you
told you, Russell Peters opened up for me. Russell Peters opened up for me for $300 a pop. I went to his house and stayed. I just got back. I stayed at his house all the time out there. Okay? These are
Damn.
guys that nobody believed in. Russell Peters, first time he did his comedy show, he was booed off the stage. But Russell Peters didn't walk away and whine and bitch and I can't do this. What he did was he critiqued himself. He saw what he did wrong and he went back on stage and he made everybody laugh. You got to believe to achieve. You've got to believe in yourself when nobody else does. How do you begin to believe in yourself? First of all, you're honest with yourself. Some people aren't going to. They're never going to because they're never going to take what it takes to get off the couch and get off their ass and go after what you want. It's not always easy. For some people it is. Other people you got to work harder. But you set goals in that area. And you said you don't know what you want yet because but you'll find it. I believe you will. You know why? You got a nice face. You got a nice way about you.
You're fine.
Oh yeah, she's fine. You know what I mean? I mean, but she's got to know. You know what? She's got a nice attitude about her. You know what I mean? People look at your face and see something. You got a nice face. You look friendly. You're not somebody that would be. I wouldn't be scared to approach you and say, "How you doing?"
No.
What's up later on? You know, something I'm joking. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my wife's out of town.
You want something in life, you got to believe in yourself when nobody else does. I mean, God, here I am, man. Like I said, I went to bed till I was 14. I failed grade 2 and 3. I'm an ex-con. But I got to interview Michael Jordan, Nelson Mandela.
Really?
Damn.
Or the blacks in Harlem. I got to meet everybody. I interviewed everybody. I was going to, you go on YouTube now and look up Spider Jones. In 1982, a year after I'm out of college, I had my own radio, I had my own TV show, Coast to Coast with George Chavello, called Famous Knockouts.
You have a lot of hair.
I had hair back then, yeah. But the things I did, I got interviewed and hang with Muhammad Ali and Smoking Joe Frazier. And I got to interview all these people. Mark Wahlberg, you'll see me and Mark hanging together. I'm just telling you this to impress upon you. It's not where you come from. It's where you're going that counts. I never thought I'd be a friend of Mark Wahlberg's. I actually hang around with him sometimes. One of my best friends is his best friend. His name is Rasta Phil, and he grew up in Boston with Donnie and Mark. And now he's back out there, and I helped him get back across the states. And he's out there at their house now. And it's truth. But when I'm 15, I didn't notice. All I'm saying, it's up to you. It's not up to anybody else. It's up to you. Anybody got a question or a comment? Please feel free to ask me. I'm finished.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Well, in the ring, what would you say your toughest challenge you ever overcame was?
Not trying to crap my pants. You know what? I started boxing because I got beat up a lot as a kid. But then it started to get girls. He's a fighter. Back then the girls liked boxers. To me, it was never about hurting anybody. That's why I never made it great. You know what I mean? I didn't have what it took to turn pro. But that was, I think the toughest thing was discipline, training, running 5 miles a day. Doing the things, a boxer, to be great, an athlete, whether it's boxer, hockey player, football player, soccer player, I don't know, you have to sacrifice just as you do. Now, I found out one thing about all the successful people that I've interviewed over the years, every single one of them has sacrificed in their life. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sacrifice. Ask yourself, how bad do I want it? My father used to have an old saying, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. In other words, everybody wants it, but they don't want to sacrifice for it. Are you willing? Ask yourself. When I went back to school, I had to sacrifice, and a lot of my boys didn't like it. Oh man, you're too old for. They told me I was too old to go back to school. You're never too old. No. I have an old saying. As long as I'm living, I'm going to keep giving. As long as I'm breathing, I'm going to keep believing. And I still have dreams. I just finished my 2nd book. This one's a bestseller, 3-4 time now. And you know it's going to be a full-length movie. I have all kinds of other things
Yes.
happening, and I am not about to quit.
It's amazing.
Somebody else had a question, but yes, sir.
You'd put to us about being a disc jockey. How old were you when you actually became one?
Yeah, well, I actually tell you the truth, I was in my 40s because I got into radio, TV first. I didn't want to go into TV. I had no aspiration to be in TV. I got a face for radio. You know what I mean? But George Chavello was offered a gig as a
Famous now.
Famous Knockouts, and they were looking for a co-host, and they auditioned me and didn't keep me. They didn't want me because they said I didn't have enough experience. Here I was, a guy who wore 80 fights. I knew how to break down a fight, but they wanted another guy named Mike Amscombe. He used to work for Global Sports. George told him straight, here's a good friend did. George said, no. Spider gets a job or I don't take it. I got the job. We won a Can-Am award.
Nice.
The show ran from 81 to 85 and then ran again from 91 to 93. And it was called Famous Knockouts. But Famous Knockouts opened my first radio gig at CHWO in Oakville. I went from there to the Fan 590. I went from there to CFRB, over to 640, and I'm at 640 now. I do a lot of work over there, as much as I want. But I'm not on radio as much anymore because I'm out of town a lot. But so see, I've lived my dream. And there are other things I still want to do, so that's
What's on
it.
your bucket list then? What's on your bucket list before you leave this earth? What else do you want to do?
Inspire every soul I can. I have a drop-in center. That was huge for me. It's being redone now, and we have a stage, we have a computer room, we have a library, we got a boxing area. We've got about 60 kids in there every night from 3:30 to 8:30, and most of them they start at 7, 8 years old right up. And you know what? It's to keep these kids off the streets and in school, because the streets can be very seductive,
Very tough.
especially the kids of poverty. And I'll tell you something, as I say to them, all that glitters is not gold. But it took me years to learn that. But my ambition, my mission is, and I thank God for this every day. And like I say, I'm not Bible thumping you, but I want to see everybody do good in life. Life is tough. A lot of us suffer. We hurt. We feel lonesome, or we just feel inept, and we have to fight that. You know what I mean? That's what I do. That's what I want to do.
That's awesome.
Spider, I put their names here, and do we have 12 people here? Yeah, all your names are here. So I need a drum roll. Here. And Spider got us 4 books. Okay, you can stop now. And a CD.
Yeah.
This CD is, I have one of, it's great. It's something you can share with your family. It's a lot of questions, interesting. So 1 CD and 4 books, so 5 lucky
Who's Curtis?
people will find it.
Oh.
Right in front of you. Right in front of you.
Curtis, congratulations.
You got, would you like a CD or a book?
I go with book.
You'll do a book.
You
Okay,
prick.
There you go.
Sarah.
Take the CD. Take it like.
Drum roll.
Mix them up, mix them up.
Spider, where is your center?
Paul,
Paul.
Nice.
Yay, Paul.
my center,
CD or book?
160
Book
Chalk
mix.
Farm,
Where's that?
It's,
Jane
it's
Wilson
also-
area.
This book I just spent 2 nights. It's addictive. You want to read it and get inspired. 3rd book.
Kandesha?
Kadisha.
Lisa.
Kadisha!
Yay, Kadisha.
Oh, is it signed?
Okay, sign, yeah. So she signed it.
We got one more book and then we got a thing. Okay, boy, I gotta try to mix them
Drum
up.
roll. Andre.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
All right, now I've got
When you're finished.
One more.
one CD. This CD is called Gerald. It's great entertainment, actually. It's got all kinds of interesting questions on sports, politics, geography, history, and a lot of fun. So you like it? It's called the Spider Jones Family Trivia Collection. A family that plays together stays together.
That's true.
Let's see who's the lucky one.
Abracadabra, Alakazam. I'll pull him up and out comes Wham. Or whatever.
Let me see my handwriting. Adrian.
Did women win it? Oh, we got one woman winner? I feel terrible.
There you go. Let's give him all
Now, what I would like to do is for somebody to take, I want a couple group photos. You notice I put you up, I get a lot of hits when I put you up on my
Yeah,
Facebook.
yeah.